Look at how the Chinese government treated its own citizens during their zero COVID failure. I followed it quite closely, and the media coming out of China at that time was absolutely terrifying. Welding people into their apartments, forcefully separating families, forcefully quarantining large groups of people in these makeshift concentration camps, and essentially just treating them absolutely horribly. When I lived in China many years ago, China was a very different country compared to what it is today. Back when I was in China, China was really opening up to the West, and things were looking really good for China. Money was pouring into China from all over the world, and the Chinese people were prospering. Then Xi came along and things took a sharp turn for the worse. The China of today is a far cry from the China that I spent some time in. Based on my observations, it's a lot worse now. I am so thankful that I decided to make the decision to come to Taiwan instead of remaining in China. I cannot imagine where I would be in life if I had decided to stay in China. But this video isn't one of those Taiwan versus China videos in where I compare the two countries and talk about why I personally think Taiwan is much better than China. Instead, this video is about how China takes advantage of the West's generosity and naivety, and how China uses the West's own political system against the West. First of all, let's take a look at probably one of the most common reasons as to why it's a bad idea to trust China, and that is, of course, IP theft. IP theft is a huge and very real problem for many companies who enter the Chinese market. China is often accused of state-organized IP theft, which violates international trade agreements and laws. It is estimated that this IP theft cost the US anywhere from around $225 billion to $600 billion each year. Maybe the US had already anticipated this before they started doing business with China. Maybe they knew this would happen but went ahead with it anyway because they knew that they could still make a very nice profit, and that this was just one of the parts of doing business with China, and they already decided to preemptively accept that. However, I find that relatively unlikely, or if they did know that something like this would happen, they interpreted or miscalculated the extent to which it is happening. They probably didn't think it would cost them quite this much money. If, of course, they had already anticipated it in the first place, which I'm not 100% sure that they did. The next reason as to why I find it very surprising that a lot of Western countries end up trusting China to a certain extent, and why I personally have a very hard time trusting China in any significant capacity, is the way the CCP actually treats the Chinese people. If they treat Chinese people like this, I am certain that they will treat foreigners a lot worse if they get the chance. Look at how the Chinese government treated its own citizens during their zero COVID failure. I followed it quite closely, and the media coming out of China at that time was absolutely terrifying. Welding people into their apartments, forcefully separating families, forcefully quarantining large groups of people in these makeshift concentration camps, and essentially just treating them absolutely horribly. Unfortunately, people in China have zero rights and zero freedoms, and as a result, the Chinese government often does mistreat its own people. The next reason as to why I think it's a pretty bad idea to trust the Chinese government is based on a more recent development. The CCP is now desperately trying to remove, cover up, and completely eliminate any trace of their zero COVID failure. They are literally trying to rewrite history and pretend like nothing happened. Why would they try to eradicate any evidence of their zero COVID policy and then simultaneously claim that it was a huge success? If it was such a huge success, then wouldn't it make more sense to celebrate it and publicize it rather than try to eradicate any sign of it? Sadly, the Chinese government forcefully implements a cruel and ill-conceived zero COVID policy. They completely ruin the lives of tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of people, and then, surprise, surprise, it all fails horribly, and what do? They do not accept it, they claim that it was a complete victory, and then at the same time they try to eradicate any kind of evidence that it ever existed and try to quickly sweep it under the rug and pretend like nothing happened at all. And of course, if there is any opposition online in China and on Chinese social media platforms or the Chinese internet by and large, it is heavily censored. But even though there is heavy censorship in China, if the Chinese people come together and oppose something en masse, even the CCP cannot completely stop them. They can try to rewrite history, but I can tell you right now, it'll fail. It will not be successful. They also conveniently left out all the horrible things that happened while they were trying to enforce the zero COVID policy. The thing about the Chinese people is that they are smart, hardworking, and resourceful. But unfortunately, they have been mistreated en masse by the Chinese government for a very long time. This is not only sad, but also quite scary. It could be a taste of what's to come if the CCP were to become a global superpower on par with the United States of America. Think of how influential the United States has been on a global perspective. I mean, think about things like music, fashion, technology, transportation, languages, and so much more. In my opinion, it's pretty remarkable when you think about it. Now, imagine China replaced the US over the next 25 to 50 years or so and had that level of influence, but with Chinese characteristics. Fortunately, I do not think that China will be able to do that in the West. Maybe in some parts of Asia, but not so much in Europe or North America. There will be way too much pushback from the local populations, which will force their governments to take action. Fortunately, the West is starting to wake up, and they are starting to take action in order to prevent China from having an influence in their own countries. Canada is a great example with their recent ban of TikTok. They have realized that the app is essentially Chinese spyware. Agreeing to the terms of service when installing TikTok is clearly going to lead to a severe violation of privacy for anybody who uses it.
This is from TikTok's privacy policy. App and file names and types. So all your apps and all your file names, all the things you have filed away on your phone, they have access to that.
Even though I really want to trust China, if we just look at the facts and the empirically verifiable evidence, the evidence is overwhelming, and I think it would be very unwise to trust China in any significant or meaningful capacity. Okay, everybody, that's it from me. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.